Well, hello there. Today, we are going to be restringing a guitar. I broke a string, and so I'm going to take this opportunity to do something useful and show you guys how I restring my guitars. Got one right over here. And I'm going to lose these headphones for now, I think. I'm just going to put this mic up a little bit higher so that you can tell what I'm doing. Get this up here. And from here on out, I'll just try and talk loud enough that this picks me up. So we should be good. I'll keep an eye on the levels here. So the first thing you're going to need is a guitar that needs new strings. Then you're going to need new strings. Let me show you here. Use the right camera. I like these elixirs. They last a long time, so I like to use them. Once upon a time, I used to change strings every Thursday because I would change strings on Thursday and teach for three or 4 hours. Then on Friday, I'd teach, and then I'd have a 4-hour gig. Saturday, I'd have a 4-hour gig. Sunday, I'd have a 2 or 3 hour open jam session gig. And this went on for a couple of years. So by the time Thursday came around, my strings were just trashed. So I got a lot of experience doing this. And we'll hopefully pass some of that on to you guys today. So let's get our guitar here. This is my RG. Had this since 2005. Let's get the camera right there. Not on me. Let's get the camera on the guitar here. All right, camera. Show me the guitar. There we go. There's what we need to see. So we'll keep this in focus, and you can look at my face up in the corner if you really want to. What we want to do now is we want to take the old strings off. The first one has already been accomplished by breaking it. There's a right and a wrong way to do this. This is the wrong way. Don't do this. If you do, don't blame me when you lose an ear or an eye. I'm not your dad. But this way certainly does get them off the guitar a lot faster. Now on this guitar, I'm going to turn this around here. You can see right there the strings go through the body. Now depending on your guitar, this will be different. But whatever you got to do, you got to do. If you do what I just did on a guitar with a Floyd Rose, you will instantly regret it. So like, don't do that with a guitar with a Floyd Rose ever, because the spring tension will pull the bridge out and it will not end well. You may notice, the picture's not that great, but you may notice I've got a piece of tape here on this pickup. That is just there to stop it buzzing when I'm playing. That the pickup rings are brass, and that one buzzes if I touch it. So, okay, next thing, we got the strings up here. We're just going to pull these off. I like to do all of them at once if I can. Some guitars you can't get away with that. Like I said, if it's got a Floyd Rose, you won't be able to. With a Floyd, you got to do it one at a time, or you got to block the bridge off first. But with this, we got about as easy of a time as we could possibly have. Les Pauls aren't too bad, but you got to be careful with those because your tailpiece and bridge are separate, and your tailpiece will fall right off. So now we've got all of those strings off. Depending on what you're doing that day and what kind of time you have, this is an excellent time to give your guitar a wipe down. I've done a pretty decent job keeping this one from getting too grungy, so we don't need to do that right now. The next thing we got to do is get our strings through the bridge here. So it doesn't matter which end you start with. Just make sure that you remember that, and you will forget this at some point and get it wrong. Everybody does. Remember that your low string here that's closest to you is going to be farthest from you when you flip the guitar over backwards. You might say, duh, of course it is. But trust me, you'll forget it at some point, and then you remember, oh yeah, Sean said not to do that. It's alright, I've done it too. Now, different brands of strings will come in different packaging. I don't know that I have a huge preference. I think I do like the Diodario strings. They come, let's point this over here. Diodario strings come like all in one bag, which is nice, and they color code the ends so that instead of doing what I'm doing where I've got a little piece of paper package for each and every single string, you just have one. I like that. It's less wasteful. That said, it doesn't bother me that Elixirs don't do it that way because these things last forever. Generally speaking, I change these anywhere from once every 6 months to once a year. And yeah, I'm not kidding. Once every 6 months to once every year. The only reason I'm replacing these right now is I broke one. I could have gotten, these have been on here since before MagFest. I want to say sometime December I put these in, and they still sound fine. Now, that is because Elixirs are coated. The ones that I get use the nano web coating, which is thinner than the other one, which is the poly web coating. The poly web, to me, it feels like almost like the strings are nylon strings, and I don't really like that feeling on my electric guitars. You almost can't feel the wrappings on the wound strings, and I do like to feel the windings a little bit. I don't need to have them tearing into my hands, but I like to a little bit feel the windings under my fingers. In the polywebs, they completely eliminate any string squeak for the most part. Like, there's very, very minimal, and they feel like the strings are too coated and rubbery. Now, the nano webs, on the other hand, the coating is thinner. It does not bother me nearly as much. So if you've tried if you tried the poly webs and you're like, these are gross, give the nano webs a shot sometime, because it really is worth it. They never sound quite like a brand new set of Diodarios or Slinkies. They start right out of the gate sounding like they've been broken in for a few days, but then they stay the same pretty much indefinitely. I've had Elixirs on a guitar, had them on there for a year, changed them just because I felt like, hey, it's been a year, I should really change this. They're gross, and they weren't gross. The new set sounded exactly the same as the set I took off. It's bizarre. Anyway, back to actually restringing. Now that I've got these through here, I am going to grab a hold of all of them underneath. So I'm hanging on to them, and I'm just going to pull them off to the side like this. You see them all, just pulling those back there out of the way and let them hang out there. And then we'll start with the part that you may actually need some help with. Let's turn this guy here and point it right up at the headstock so you can see that. Now, there are several ways of doing this, and the way that I do it for a reason, and that's it works really well. The strings stay in tune really well. They don't slip, but they also don't get bound up. Here's one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to just put the string in, pull it tight, and just start winding. If you've got locking tuners, sure, you give it just a minimal amount of slack, lock that puppy down, and start cranking on it, and you will be fine. Standard tuners, you don't want to do that because it will not stay. You need at least 1 or 2 wraps around the post. You don't want excessive wraps. In my perfect world, I'll have one wrap above this bit here, this bit here, I'll have 1 wrap above it and 2 wraps below it. The way we do that, we're going to get about 2 inches worth of slack, and then we're just going to push that back through. So all I did was take this string here, push it right back through. I'm going to take my index finger and hold it down at the nut. Now I'm going to start turning this, and it's going to start coming around. And you'll see once it's about 180 degrees here, once it's coming around, I'm going to help it out a little bit right here, and I'm going to pull on it. You can't see that other hand too well. I'm going to pull it here. And notice that's put a kink right here on the string. And that is not going anywhere now. So we've got a kink there. Now let's talk about what I'm doing with my hand. See how I've got my right hand here, and I'm pulling on the top, but I'm also pulling on the back end of the string right here. So by holding it like this, I'm putting pressure on both sides of the string, the front and the back. And we need that. We need to keep the string tight so that as it wraps around the post, it wraps tightly around that post. That is super important. Now, check this out. Here's where the magic happens. We wrap this around. You can see this excess string here is going to come around, and it's going to go underneath the length of the string. So we've got this part here. So we've got this guy on top once. I'm going to have this, and notice I'm keeping this held tight. You got to keep good tension on it. I can't stress that enough. See what I did there? Stress the string. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull straight up on it. So that's just up and it's out of our way. And as this comes around here, you'll see I'm going to poke this part underneath the part that's coming around. You see that right there? I'm just poking this underneath it and making sure that it stays that way. And what you'll see is that this piece here is underneath the first coil, but it's going to be above any subsequent coils. So however many coils however many wraps, coils, you know what I'm talking about, however many wraps we get around it, all of the remaining coils will go underneath this. So what we've done is we've locked this string in place. We've got 1 coil on top, and then however many we end up with on the bottom. Now at this point, it is safe if you have one, which I do somewhere. Here it is. If you have one of these guys here, string winder, this is a point where it's safe to grab hold and start using that guy. And all you do is just start cranking on it, making sure that, notice this whole time, even when I was kind of absent-mindedly looking for the string winder, keeping good tension all along this part of the string. You got to keep it tight because you want a good tight wrap around your tuning posts. And you want to also at this point be stretching your string out. That'll save you some time once you've got your strings on. Once you feel like it'll make a note, it's safe to let go. Not real worried about pitch right now. A little rusty. I don't do this as often as I used to. Like I said, once upon a time, every Thursday. That sounds like it's a little sharp. It's an F. I thought so. And I've got 1 wrap above, 1 complete wrap under. That'll do. Now let's go for the next one. I'm going to walk kind of hand holding through it again, and then I'm going to start just tearing into the thing. So when I'm not yapping and running my gab the whole time, this whole process from start to finish takes every bit of 15 minutes. So notice we're tight down at the bridge. Pull the string up. Pull it tight through here, get a couple inches of slack. 2 tuning keys is usually a pretty decent average. You'll notice the thinner the string gets, the less slack you need. So the thicker ones you need a little more to get around. But we'll grab about 2 tuning keys worth, push it back through. We hold it down, start cranking. Once we get around here, we're going to help it out. put a kink in it, pull it tight. Our excess is going to go under this time. That's the only time that ever happens. The excess goes under right there, and from then on the excess goes on top. See, I've pulled that straight up. This little nub that's coming around right there, this little nub, you'll see it coming around, and that little nub goes over the top. So I'm just going to push this down a little bit, and you see the little nub go on top and the length of the string go around. Once we get to about here where we've got this, and we make sure that it's in between the two coils, you get right up on that. See it? So this part here, once we are sure that this is going to go, and it did, then it's time for the winder. You don't have to use a winder. You can sit there and do this by hand. Some people use a winder with a drill. If you're gonna restring your guitar every Thursday, you could even get away with not doing this. And you could do the thing I said not to do earlier, but I don't recommend it. But if you don't need them to hang in there very long, you know, what's it matter? Okay, so let's get our next one in here. We just go through, pull it back, start cranking. It's a little bit loose. I need to replace the grommet on my tuning key there. Excess string goes underneath. Just push it right through there. Once it gets around, we pull it straight up. And our nubbins is coming around. We just let the length of the string slip right underneath there. Once we get this part here, make sure that our length of our string, this part, is going underneath. And we're good to start with our winder. Notice keeping good tension on it the whole time. You can't see it off screen because I'm making sure you see the part up at the top. I am changing string gauges. You do this enough, you start to get a feel for how tight they should be. And you just sort of know when they're at the right tension to produce the note they're supposed to put. That kind of goes away a little bit when you switch string tensions. I'm switching from using 9 to 46 to using 10 to 46s, so those three should be about the same, but then these three, I felt like they were a little on the flimsy side lately. This guitar is weird. I'm hoping that I get some decent results out of these 10s. May or may not. Some people will try and sort of espouse the virtues of one particular string gauge above all others. I don't do that. Different string gauges will react differently. They'll have different tensions. That's just how they are. And which gauges you should use really is a matter of what you want your guitar to do for you. And that particular guitar. This guitar, now a lot of times 10s are the best of both worlds for multi-purpose stuff. This guitar, 9s have a real nice snap to them because of the flimsiness. 11s have loads of body, just body for days, and great sustain down on the low end of the neck. The 9s, I give up some of that sustain on the low end, but the 9s have better sustain up above the 12th fret, where they're a little wigglier. And the greater tension on the 11s, you get diminishing returns once you get the string to a point where it's too short. So above the 12th fret, the 10s will not sustain as well, or the 11s will not sustain as well. Now, usually 10s are sort of a best of both worlds situation. You get a decent amount of snap and pop, but you also get a decent amount of body. This particular guitar, and my Telecaster, both I run into issues where the 10s are kind of the worst of both worlds. I trade off all the snap and bite from the 9s, and I don't get any body, or I don't when I go to 11s, I don't get as much body, or 10s. I don't get the body of the 11s, and I don't get the snap of the 9s. Man, I can't word today. Did I say that right? When I switch to 10s, I give up all of the snap and bite from the 9s, and I also don't gain the body of the 11s. So it's weird. I'm hoping that I'll have a little better luck with these, because the 9s have just been feeling too loosey-goosey for me. So I got that through. Notice I put a little less slack on this than I did on the thicker ones. But we're approaching finished here. So when it gets around about halfway, we're just going to help it out a little, poke it down, and then we keep good tension on it once we get that kink in the string right there. And keep good tension on it and just get a couple winds around, and that string will last pretty much indefinitely. Was I going to say, we talked about tensions, different string gauges. If you want more body, you want fatter chords, go with something thicker. Worst Best Friends is here for the guitar stringing. You haven't missed it all. I'll walk you through these last two so that you can get the benefits that everybody who saw the first one got. I've only got one string left. Whenever this ad stops playing, oh no! There shouldn't be an ad playing. I better slow down. We're at this point. Yeah, I'll just do this one without the winder. We'll just hang in there. Dun, 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 dun. Just keep going and going. It's done. Good to see you. Hey, what's up, Steve-O? Oh my gosh, it's Steve-O. Steve-O, you missed the first 5 strings because I restring guitars really fast. But that's okay, because I'm going to go real slow on the last string so you can see what's going on. I talked about string gauges, and all of these streams do go up on YouTube later. So within a few days, usually they're up on YouTube. They're always on Twitch immediately. So let's see here. So the first thing we got to do is we pull the string through. So now that we're on the last one, let's do a refresher. So we pull it tight. Make sure that we got good tension coming out of the bridge. And then up here at this end, we're going to lay that in there. We're going to get this through. Oh yeah, and when you get to the unwound strings, the beauty of the way that I like to string these that I didn't mention yet is a lot of people with their unwound strings, they'll do them differently than their wound strings. You don't have to when you string it this way. You can do it the exact same way. You can do all 6 or 7 or 8 or however many strings you got. You do them all the same way. Some people will do an extra wind around. They'll run it back through. Don't do that. Do not run this through and then run it back through the key. You're just going to hate later that you did that. You're going to be mad at yourself later on when you can't get the string out. So you just run it through here. We get about 1.5 to 2 inches of slack. And we're going to push that back through the key. And if you look down, I'm holding it down at the nut so that it can't go anywhere. And we go over here. And you can see that this string is good and floppy, right? So I'm going to start turning back up at this end. And you can see when the string gets about halfway around, I'm going to give it a little hand here. We're going to push it this way. And then I'm going to, at the other end, I'm going to get a kink here, and I'm going to start doing the handshake thing that we did earlier. So the way I'm holding it, up on the top, the string's thin, but you can still see it. I'm putting tension here, and then down on the back side, the other side of my hand, I'm putting tension going through this way. So I'm pulling the string from the bridge and I'm pulling it from the nut, both directions. That way we've got good tension all the way through. So now we'll put this up here and we'll start turning again. And again, if you've been watching, this excess string here is going to go underneath. You can see it go underneath the main part of the string, and then we just pull it right through. Once it gets up about here, up to here. We'll pull straight up on it, just like that. And we start turning, and this little nubbins here that's coming around, that little kink that we put in earlier, that's coming around, and it's going to go over the top, and now this part goes under. So as it comes around, we just kind of push that underneath, and then keep good tension on it. And then once we get this part to go over the top, we know we're solid. I'm old, I gotta look underneath the glasses to see what I'm doing there. I almost tried to do this stream with contacts in, and that wouldn't have gone well. I would have had to dig out reading glasses, and would have been all kinds of bad. The benefit of doing this with the glasses, I can look under them. I'm not quite old enough for the bifocals yet, but soon. Okay, so there we go. There's that. And you can see this has gone in the middle. And once we get to there, we can start winding it. And once you feel the tension on your right hand, once you feel like it's going to make a sound, that's when it's time to let go. So we do this. We're around. It sounds beautiful. It's perfect. So now let's get this guy here, and we're going to tune this to whatever kind of tuner you want. I've got a little Korg tuner here that I use. You can use your Snark or whatever you like. Notice I'm not that careful about this right now. Let's get this back up on that headstock there. There you can see kind of what's going on. It's not that interesting. Well, I was way off on those. You can tell I'm rusty. Move the chair over here. There we go. There's an E. Now, I did change string gauges, so my neck has a few more pounds of torque pulling on it. But I changed from 9 to 46s to 10 to 46s, so it's not a huge difference. Just these three strings have a little more tension on them. Now, at some point I'll do one of these streams and then make a video as well where I do one on my 7-string with a Floyd Rose. Bam. Oh, that's good. I'm not being too particular about the tuning, just kind of getting it in the ballpark. At some point I'll do one of these with the Floyd Rose. This is a point where if you're using a Floyd, it gets important that you do the right things. Because I've seen people sit and chase the notes down for a half hour or more. With a fixed bridge, which we're doing right here. With that's about as simple of a setup as you can possibly get. There's just not a lot to go wrong there. The strings come through the back of the guitar, they go through the front. Not a lot going on. With a Floyd Rose, you got a spring to deal, or up to 4 springs to deal with. And you can have all kinds of issues. But we're not going to talk about that right now. What we're going to talk about right now is what you should do once your strings are on. It's taken me a little longer because I'm explaining this to you guys. I'm yapping as I do it. But when I'm doing this, just to restring a guitar quickly, like I said, it shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes. Don't be scared to do it. Let's look here a little closer to there. More in the middle of the neck here. What we want to do now is we want to stretch these strings. Now, that is making roundabouts an E. The way you want to stretch your strings is you want to grab right here, and you want to put another hand here and push down. So you're pushing down with one, pulling up with the other, and you just guide your hand down that, and you want to put stress on every part of the string. If you just grab it in the middle and yank, all you're doing is stretching out the ends of the strings and the middle point, and then this whole section here is not getting any attention. So you want to just put your hand there and pull up, and then slide down, pull up, slide down. If you do it this way, you do that 2 or 3 times. Here how we went flat. Now we're a little bit sharp, so I'm going to stretch it out. It'll pull it just slightly flat. Probably not much now. Yeah, it pulled it almost perfectly in tune. Once you do that on every string, you just kind of run down them, just like that. Don't be afraid. Like, I'm lifting, you can't see it, but I'm actually lifting this guitar up almost by the string. Maybe don't do that, but, you know, again, I'm not your dad. Just don't come running blaming me if you do something stupid and break your strings or your guitar. The better way is to have it sitting on your lap like this. And then we're just going to do that same thing for all the strings. You do want to be a little more gentle with the unwound strings, because 1, they break easier, and 2, they'll slice your fingers. So, like, careful a little bit, you know. They also, you know, they don't require as much. Notice how I'm pulling up here, but I'm not manhandling them quite as much. I'm just kind of giving them a little bit of attention. Man, I remember when I was like 11 or 12, my stepdad picked up my electric guitar, and he started doing like this kind of thing on it. And I was just freaking out because I was like a 12-year-old kid, and I was like, "What are you doing? You're gonna break my strings." And he's like, "Nah, chill, check this out." And then he showed me like how to bend strings and not to be afraid of them. And now, you know, I'll, with my 7-string with the Floyd on it, I'll grab that thing and shake it around by the whammy bar and not even sweat it. You would be surprised how much stress these things can take. And it's weird, usually when you break them, it's because there's some weird fault that's been building up over time, or something's worn out. Now, let's talk about up here. Well, again, once you go through, you stretch all of them out, get it tuned up, just keep tuning, stretching, tuning, stretching, tuning, stretching. It usually won't take very many times, as long as you're given a sincere effort to stretch that string out. It shouldn't take too much work. Stringing a 12-string is always basically an hour affair. That's true. Steve-O says that the tuning stretching takes way longer than on a 12-string. Yeah, it does. I mean, if you think about it, just by definition of having twice as many strings, it wouldn't be surprising for it to take twice as long. But a lot of times it's even longer because it uses skinny wound strings. And the stretchiest strings that you can get are skinny wound strings. So 12 strings have another unique feature. So we're just about approaching finished here. What I want to show you, I'm going to cut all these off, but before I do that, I'm going to show you a trick. If you don't have a knife or anything handy, you can do this even with just a pick. But you take your string, you see right here we got a string, and I've got a penny. Right there, there's a penny. It's a little out of focus, doesn't matter, you don't need to see it that well. I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to kink the string, and I'm going to go like this, up against the penny. And now it's going to curly cue. You'll see it better on the B string. And see how now, that is all curly cued up. So if you can't cut them off, do that. Don't leave your strings just hanging out all over the place. I don't care how cool you think it looks now, you'll regret it later. We just want to give these a snip. If I had the foresight to grab my actual just wire cutters instead of using pliers with wire cutters built in, I would have an easier time of getting these nubs down short where they won't poke into the gig bag or anything. But That's not super important. How do I feel about lacquered strings? Well, here's what I'm putting on there. And I had a little bit of a conversation about that. We got elixirs, nano webs. Poly webs feel terrible. I don't like them. They're weird. Nano webs feel great. I've used a couple other coated strings. I will say I like elixir because they coat the whole string. They take a regular string that's been wound already, and they coat the whole thing. So the coating is going around the winds, and that keeps dirt and grime and stuff from getting in between the winds of the strings. Other companies, I can't remember which ones do it, but a lot of them, they will, instead of putting the coating over this whole string, they will coat the winding and wrap a coated winding around the core. The reason they do that is because you feel the winds better. So I understand why they do it. I tried those. I did not like it at all. It felt terrible. It was like, it seemed like it defeated the point because dirt and grime could get in there. I didn't like it. It felt like it had big windings on it. Now, if you're somebody that is interested in getting extra long life out of your strings and you don't like the feel of coated strings, yeah, if you don't like the feel of the elixir coating, but you want to get extended life strings, try out one of the brands that does it that way. Steve was saying DR. Yeah, I remember DR does it that way. I think those are the other ones that I tried. I've never tried Red Devils or Black Beauties. But yeah, the elixirs I like better. It's just important to get the nano web if you don't like the feel of the old style polyweb ones. So now we've got this all set. Let's get this up here at the guitar. And we're basically done at this point. Now you're ready to just enjoy your guitar with new strings. If your tuner works. In my case, this guy is just not happy with me. It's got a really weak microphone on it. So that's perfect. What I should really do with this is just plug it in instead of lollygagging like I'm doing here. Let's talk real quick. Now that we've got strings on, we can talk about tuning. What I'm doing here is I'm using a 12th fret harmonic. The reason for that is that it's more stable. If you look at the string, after you strike the string and you watch it vibrate, you'll notice if you do the 12th fret harmonic, the string does not vibrate nearly as much. It's not nearly as wide and crazy of a vibration, so it won't go up and down in pitch as much. It will be a more stable tone. And by tone, I don't mean the timbre, I mean the frequency that it produces. Now, another thing that is happening off screen that you guys haven't seen is, if you're paying attention, you notice I did everything, all 6 strings at a time. I took the old ones off, all of them at once. I put the new ones through the bridge all at once. I trimmed everything all at once. And the reason I did that is now my cleanup is super, super easy. I just pick up the 6 long pieces, I pick up the 6 pieces that came out of the bridge, and then I pick up the 6 ends that came off of the top. So that there is how I like to restring a guitar. Hit me up in the comments if you got any questions. Again, check out our Patreon. That's why we're able to do these videos. It's thegrammarclub.com, or it's that's actually where we have our internet streaming radio station. You can check that out. We just launched that today. It's patreon.com/thegrammarclub. That's where you can get new Grammar Club music. We release 2 songs every single week. I do one of these streams and videos every week. We usually play some games every Sunday. We would love to have your company. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to play some guitar now. I am Ailsean from the Grammar Club, and I will see you later.